All right. Hello, testing. Welcome, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
In Zoom, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you're the best.
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is our second data science speaker series for this academic year. And my name is Rachel Seide. I am math, statistics, and data science professor here at Montgomery College. I'm also the data science program director. I'm delighted to see you all here. And we are going to get started. The talk today is a conversation about sports analytics. Oop, that's not what I want. I think I have to change the settings here. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Okay, and so let me stop sharing. All right, and so instead of me introducing our speakers, I am going to let them introduce themselves. So if we can start with Jason. And I think you have to switch your mic on. Yep, there you go.
Okay, so I'm Jason Lee. I'm on the math faculty, teach math at Montgomery College. This is my 10th season as a math professor. One of my past students was Adam. Adam was also one of my learning assistants back in the good old days.
Yeah.
What class did you take?
Discrete
Yeah,
structures.
that's right. Yeah. And Adam, of course, was an excellent student. So I've been teaching math for a long time and 10 years here. What else do you want to know, Rachel?
I would like to know what math classes you teach.
So I regularly teach calculus. I'm teaching that this semester. Next semester, I'm teaching discrete math again. I'll teach algebra, pre-calculus. Those are the ones I teach most frequently.
All right, thank you. And then maybe we can switch to Adam.
Sure. My name's Adam Santi. So I'm a research engineer with the Washington Wizards. I'm also a former MC student. When I was here, I think I was studying computer science. It might have been math. I'm not sure.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of overlap. I took discrete structures with Dr. Lee. I took biostat.
It was biostat back
Yeah,
then.
it was biostat with Professor Seide. This is before the whole data science initiative really happened. So it's pretty cool to hear about that now. I then transferred to UMBC, where I majored in applied statistics, and I worked in the intelligence space for about 1.5 years. COVID hit, I went remote and had a little bit of time on my hands, I guess. So I started playing around with some sports analytics data, and eventually that led to me getting this position with the Wizards. I think if you want to pull up my slides, if that's not too hard. If not, we can go back to it at another time.
A little technical difficulties where it's not letting me. Actually,
No worries.
if I can get someone to help me get IT over here, for some reason it's stopped letting me share screen. So we're going to go on maybe without the share screen, and we'll get to the visuals in a second.
Sure.
All right. So the next question would be, Adam, what was your what was your academic path after leaving MC?
Right. So I went to UMBC. I majored in applied statistics. I chose applied stat. So I knew I wanted to do data science in some capacity. I think there are kind of two paths. You could go down the computer science path and maybe major in CS and get they have like specializations in data science, something like that. Or you could go down the statistics path. And I think I was just a little bit more interested in theory, and I like doing math problems. So I chose to major in statistics, and applied stat at UMBC gave me a lot of leeway as far as like being able to dip into courses in the computer science department or in information systems and still have those courses count towards my major. So yeah, that's why I chose applied statistics.
What kind of programming languages or software tools did you learn in that major?
Most of the stuff at UMBC was C++, actually. So that was fun. not. Now, yeah, now fortunately.
Did you do statistical analysis in C++?
No, sorry, that in the computer science courses, it was
Okay.
C++. So like I took data structures in C++,
All right.
which was not fun. But the statistics courses primarily are a little bit of Python here and there. Yep. And I took a computer vision course that was MATLAB. I don't know if you want to call that a computer science, or I don't know if you want to call that a programming language, but I had to learn it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, now that I got the visuals up, did you want me to slide to anything yet or
Sure,
not yet?
I guess you could go to the second slide.
Yeah, it's very unhappy today. I don't know if I can do slideshow. I'll try it.
No, no worries.
There we go. All right.
Cool. So yeah, when I had mentioned I had kind of some free time on my hands during COVID, and this was some of the stuff that I was doing, just like finding data online and trying to create visualizations that I thought were interesting, throwing it out on Twitter, I guess now X. At the time, a lot of people in the sports analytics community were on Twitter, and it's like a very welcoming place. So I guess if you're interested in trying to get involved, it's not too hard. Just start making stuff and putting it out on Twitter.
So you made these?
I can talk about them a little bit if you'd like.
I would love for you to talk about them, please.
Sure. So the one so I was like more interested in soccer analytics. I just like soccer. I'm a Chelsea fan, if anyone's wondering. So the one on the left, I managed to find some tracking data. Actually, it was like an initiative called Friends of Tracking had put out some soccer tracking data. The Seattle Sounders, which is the MLS club out in Seattle, they had a virtual analytics conference, and they had like a analytics competition where the challenge was to create a cool visual. So I tried to create this visual that to me kind of quantified how open the goal is based on where the ball is and the defenders inside of it. So you can kind of see these like, yeah, so the attacker, his like cone towards the goal is in red, and then the defenders who are within that cone, their like shadows almost that they're casting on the net is in yellow. So you can kind of see how much of the goal is being covered by a defender. And then the one on the right, so there's this thing called the NFL Big Data Bowl. Started up, I don't know how many years ago, but it's probably the best like pipeline as far as getting into sports analytics, like getting hired by a team. So they produce, or they just put out a bunch of tracking data. And for this, I didn't actually submit like an entry to the competition. I just played around with the data and made a notebook. There's this concept of pitch control or field control that was actually taken from soccer, where I won't go too deep into the weeds on this, but basically you can kind of model a player's zone of influence as like a two-dimensional normal distribution, where you can affect the width or narrowness of that distribution by the speed at which the player is moving and the direction in which they're moving. So
Is that what the shading is about?
exactly, yeah, that's what the shading is. So it's a little hard to tell on this screen, but I think it's like the Washington players, their zone of influence is more burgundy, and the Green Bay players, their zone of influence is more green. So you can kind of tell like which team is dominating or which team owns a spot on the field, like an XY location on the field. So this wasn't, I did not come up with this concept. I just implemented it in code because I figured people would want to use it in the competition. And I think people did end up using it for some of their entries.
Cool.
Do you know what the time resolution is on the data?
It was 20 frames per second, maybe 20 or 25. I no longer work with football data, so I'm not sure.
What tool was that?
Both of these were R.
R. Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Okay, so what's really funny, some of you may not know, so when Adam was in my what used to be biostat class, I have a final course project, which some of our students are starting right now. And at the time, we had to relate it to biology-ish because that was the stipulation. And Adam pushed the envelope, and I still remember your project because you were trying to predict selections for the NFL Combine.
I think that's what, yeah.
And we were looking at like, I think how we pushed it with some sort of like bio dimensions or something like that.
Yeah, we were getting really creative about I was like, well, it says how much they weigh and how fast they run. Maybe that's kind of like the force they're generating or something like that.
Excellent. All right. Am I going to stop sharing now for this one?
Yes.
Okay. So the next question is actually, Jason, what was your academic path prior to working at MC?
So I got an undergraduate degree in math from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. It's San Luis Obispo is on the California coast, about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Then I went to graduate school at UC San Diego, and I got a PhD in math. I studied combinatorial game theory, which I do not think about very much anymore these days. If I think about math, I like thinking about combinatorics, which is, there's this similarity in name, but it's not really the same kind of stuff. And then after graduate school, I taught math at a 4-year school for a few years. Then I moved to Maryland. I had a government job for 3 years. I learned about programming in Python, and I went back to teaching.
What year was that, or years?
2010 to 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was before coming to MC.
Thank you. All right. So the next question is to both of you. Maybe we can start with Adam. What is your current sports related job? Because that's what I think a lot of people are here to hear about.
Yeah. My title is research engineer, which is intentionally vague, I think. And this is something that you'll kind of notice if you look at professional teams and their front offices. A lot of people with analytics positions, their titles aren't very clear. They don't really tell you what they do, and that's often by design. Teams are extremely jealous and protective of their intellectual property, and so yeah, they don't want to divulge too much. So,
Adam, can you say what is the front office of a
the front office,
professional sports franchise?
sure. The front office of a sports franchise is like the general manager. I guess it includes marketing as well, but generally it's known as the people who are kind of the decision makers. So when you think of the coaching staff as like kind of in control of what happens on the field, and then you think of the front office as in control of who gets onto the field or onto the court.
Did you want me to show any visuals for that or not yet?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
All right.
Did I? Okay. Sorry. Let me go back to the question. So I guess I need to backtrack a little bit and talk about the research team and just data. And so the research team is kind of in charge of all things data related. That means a lot. So we get a bunch of data from a bunch of different data providers. So we have to ingest all that data and get it into our own database. We then have to we like clean it. We transform it a little bit. So by cleaning, I mean some more basic things like making sure that columns that might have come in as a string but are really meant to be ints are actually changed to ints. We augment that data, we enhance it. We actually link the data. So let's say I am a basketball player. My ID might be A-Santi in one database. It might be Adam Santi in another database. It might just be A Santi in another database, or sorry, from another data provider. We want to be able to use data from all of our providers, right? Link it all up together and then aggregate on top of that. And that's kind of a beast of a process all in and of itself. So that's just the ingest of the data, right? Then we transform it. We aggregate it in ways that make sense to us. We get very granular information, right? We could talk about just a specific shot from a specific game, but we don't really care about that too much. We want to know about trends over time. So then we aggregate it in ways that make sense to us. Think like season-long averages, maybe the last 5-10 games.
Is your team making recommendations to the coaching staff that they might implement in terms of strategy during the game?
So that is the last part, which is I will get back to that.
Okay.
So I guess the next part after the transformation, it's the actual analysis. We have good data in a good format. Now we actually need to find trends and patterns in it or get some sort of insight out of it. So that's in terms of statistics, there are kind of three different ways that we look at it. There's descriptive, which is like a box score, right? It's just, okay, Dr. Lee shot 5 for 7 from 3 last night. Dr. Lee had a good night. Then there's prediction, which is Dr. Lee's been on a heater for the last 5 games. He's been shooting very well. Can we predict what we think he might shoot over the next 5 games? And then there's the last piece, which is the hardest piece. That's inference, which is what if we manipulate something about Dr. Lee's shot? What if we change where he's shooting from now? How do we think that will affect his field goal percentage over the next 5 games? So that's all happening. And then that final piece is, okay, we've conducted our analysis. We feel good about it. Put it in front of our decision makers. And like when you're talking to coaches, they're not like, what's the p-value on this right there? So like, how do we put that into something that makes sense to them? And that's the last part of it. My title is research engineer because in some way I touch all of that.
Are you in these meetings with, say, the head coach where some of this information is being conveyed? Or do they keep you in the back?
Keep me in the back. No, I'm not in meetings with our head coach, although he's so nice, I probably could be. But no, I am more on the front office side of things. But we have an analytics coach on staff. So he's kind of like that translator, the person he understands the statistical side and he understands the coaching side. So he's very good at taking the results that we produce and distilling it down to a format that makes sense to a coaching staff. Sure. So
Wait,
there's.
So do you mind if I'm just going to cut in. We can take questions later. We'll answer this one. If you don't mind holding questions until the end, that'd be great. But I'm going to repeat your question just so that Zoom people could hear it. So the question was, how big is your team, Adam?
My team is, I think it's 5 people. There's my boss. So she's the VP of Research and Information Systems. She's like a Harvard biostatistics PhD. She's brilliant. So she heads up our team. We have a data analyst. He's like his title's research analyst. He's like our hardcore data scientist. We have a senior software engineer. We have a data engineer. He's remote. He actually lives out in Chicago. And then we have me.
Thank you. All right. So now the question goes to you, Jason, and you can also let me know if you'd like to do your visuals.
Yeah,
I think
if
we're
you could
good
put up the slide.
now.
So my job is a lot different from Adam's. So Adam works for a professional sports franchise. I do not. So my job is, I work as a Major League Baseball official scorer. My boss, so I work for Major League Baseball. I do not work for a team. He works for the Washington Wizards. I work for the league.
Yeah.
Can you go up to page 1?
Oh,
Great.
don't know what happened there.
Okay, so in my job, I go to games and my job is involved with judgment rulings on all matters related to the statistics that are produced in the game. Adam mentioned descriptive statistics. That's what my job is involved. So primarily, I'm judging things like hits versus errors, wild pitch versus pass ball, making rulings on who's the winning pitcher, losing pitcher, earned runs, unearned runs, RBIs, fielding statistics. These are all things that are produced in what Adam referred to as a box score, which is a description of what happened in the game. These statistics are sometimes used in jobs like his to help do analysis, but I don't do any of that kind of thing because I don't work for a team. Another thing that I often do on the job is I may have to answer questions from broadcast media like the radio or TV announcers, or print media like reporters. There was a game that I worked last year where something very confusing happened on the field, and I was the one that a lot of reporters wanted to talk to find out what really happened down there. And on a very rare occasion, I may even have to talk to the umpires to find out what was going on the field. This is a description that I took from the Major League Baseball rule book that sort of describes what the job is. I'm covering games in Washington and Baltimore. I don't do all the games. Baseball goes for 6 months, and there's a lot of games. So between the Nationals and the Orioles, there's 162 home games. I do not go to all of those games. I could not handle that. There's a group of 5 of us that cover these games, and we split up the games as to, you know, who's available for what game. You can show some of these pictures. So I'm sitting in the press box, and this is the view from the press box in Washington. I've got my iPad there. I have a microphone because I have to make announcements in the press box so that, for example, the TV broadcasters can hear. So I might make an announcement as to a ruling that I have made about what happened on the field. So I might get on the microphone that broadcasts to the press box. This is not the public address system. This is an internal microphone that only the media, the broadcasters, and the newspaper reporters can hear. And so I might make an announcement about something that's happened. You can keep going. This is in Baltimore. That's my view from my seat at Oriole Park. This is a great location. In Washington, we're really way up high. In Baltimore, we are so low that the foul balls come in there and
you duck.
so it didn't work out for me this past season, but I said I was going to catch a foul ball, and it did not happen. I talked a big game about that, and it didn't happen. No, I'm not going to duck. I'm going to go try to catch one. It just didn't happen.
Duck. Okay, that's just me.
But it's a really great seat. We're right down low. We're right behind home plate. It's one of the best spots to sit in all of baseball. You can keep going. That's me in Baltimore. So I'm making some kind of an announcement. You can keep going. There's a shot from the back. You can see there's the left field foul pole. So you can see just how close we are to the field. Pretty cool. Keep going. This is in Washington. The press box is out in the open. This must have been a game in April. And as cold as I looked is exactly how cold it was. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. Extra one.
That was the Orioles made the playoffs, and I got assigned to work one of the games before they sadly got eliminated. So that's before game 2 of the American League Division Series, where the Orioles lost to the eventual World Series champion Rangers. Keep going. And on the same day, that is me with Adrienne Robertson, who is the Orioles public address announcer, and I sit right next to her. She's the one that's making the announcements that are heard by the fans all throughout the stadium. And she has never once let me announce a batter. Keep going.
You make this bigger.
I'll talk about this a little bit later, but this notice is posted in all.
Sorry.
This notice is posted in all 30 Major League press boxes, and it's rules about conduct towards official scorers. And I'll talk about this later, but the fact that there has to be a notice about rules about conduct towards official scorers tells you that things have happened in the past. I have a copy of this posted in my office at Montgomery College, which Rick Penn came by the other day and saw it, and I told him, this applies to you too, pal. I'll come back and talk about this again later.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's a kind of great start to it, but I would love to get into a little bit more of the details. I think a lot of people here would like to know, what are the things you like most about your job? And maybe we can get to maybe biggest challenges. We won't say things you like least, but biggest challenges.
I actually, if you could pull up my.
Yeah, I think
slide.
it's working now, finally. Oh, wait, we got somebody coming in. Hang on. Share. Oh, no, it's really, there we go.
And I think the
Next one.
final slide.
This one or one
Yeah,
more?
yeah, that's
Okay.
the one. Yeah. Perks of the job. So I'm from here. I grew up a Wizards fan, so it's pretty cool. I like. I would, if I didn't get team gear, I'd probably spend some money on team gear. So getting it all for free is pretty great. The access is really cool. So that picture on the left, that's my family and I on the court before our last game, our final game of the last season. So it's pretty cool to be able to take my wife and my kid out there. My kid has seen an inordinate amount of basketball for someone who's not even 2 years old yet. Yeah, and like she's been around the players and the coaches and stuff. Like it's just a cool experience. And from like a personal side, it's important to me that like my boss is a woman, the general manager of our G League team is a woman. So like having a daughter and like I hope I might have to address it at some point, but I hope that she kind of internalizes at some point that like there are these women who are holding really high roles in an industry that's traditionally dominated by men. And that's something that's important to me. And just having her be around that is really cool. The best part of the job really is the people. I think it takes a certain type of person to go into sports. They're like very, very highly qualified people. I've never felt like I'm the smartest person in the room from the day I joined the organization. Like I'm surrounded by people who are brilliant, work extremely, extremely hard, and are all like just committed to the same goal of, trying to build a championship level contender. And that's a really cool thing. It forces you to step your own game up.
When the Wizards win the NBA championship, are you going to get a ring?
I will get a ring. Yeah.
Nice.
I will. When it does happen. Everyone associated with the team actually gets a ring. So the same group that owns the Wizards owns the Mystics, and the Mystics won a ring a few years ago. So I know a few people with Mystics rings.
Thank you. All right. And then we'll go to Jason. Oh, we're doing best. We'll skip to challenges afterwards.
So what I like most about the job is that I feel like I'm ingrained in the history of the sport, that baseball fans really care very deeply about the numbers of the game. If you say numbers to a baseball fan about, Ted Williams hit 406 and Joe DiMaggio had a 56 game hitting streak, people know these numbers. And now I'm sort of a part of in judging these things, and I'm a part of it. I get to sit in the press box, and I get paid to watch baseball. And do you want to talk about downsides now?
Sure, you can start the ball rolling, as they may say.
Can you put my slides back up?
Yeah, sure. If there's anyone here who could take a picture of our presenters, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Just share screen. Sorry, distracted.
So among the downsides for me anyway, so if I'm going to get to a game and I'm working, I have to stay there the whole game. I can't leave. I mean, if there's an emergency, then I can leave, but I've never done it. So this is through rain delays, game goes extra innings, whatever. I'm there to the bitter end. And there have been times when I have been at a baseball game that ended past midnight, and I have an 8 a.m. class the next day. Listen, suck it up. That's part of it, right? You have to deal with it.
Challenge.
Here's another part of the challenge. The fact that I mentioned this, the fact that this notice is posted in the press boxes means you see there are people who are very passionate about baseball statistics. And I have had people argue passionately that the things that I ruled were, well, let's put it charitably, not correct. And that's part of the job. Now, somebody from the team might ask me that, they don't agree with my ruling. Well, so be it, but I don't work for the team. All right. I don't work for the Washington Nationals or the Baltimore Orioles. I don't work for them. My boss's 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 boss is Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball. I answer to them. My job title is, so I'm an official scorer. I work in the data operations department of Major League Baseball. And that's what it says on the credential that I have to wear when I'm at the game. So I think those are the downsides.
How much food from concession stands do you have to eat?
Much food. Well, I don't go to the concession stands. They actually, in the press box, they have a kitchen.
Perfect.
The food's a little better in Baltimore than it is in Washington, but I get a free meal too. So that's another.
That's perk.
perk of the job. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And Adam, any challenges you want to talk about that you can talk about?
Yeah. Oh, I should mention one more perk. Because we work at the practice facility, we get to eat the food that the players eat, and our chefs are pretty awesome. And it's like guilt-free eating, right? You're like, professional athletes are eating this. I'm good. I'll get another serving. Cons, there are plenty. I think these jobs aren't for the faint of heart. It's a lot of work. It's far from your traditional 9 to 5. You could get a message like I did earlier this week from a coach. He's like, "Hey, this data doesn't look right to me," or "Hey, can we add something to this report?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess that's what I'm doing this morning. That's what I'm working on today." Um, there's something called the sports discount, which all people who work for teams kind of know about, which is the fact that you are taking a discount by working for a team. Teams know that a lot of people want these jobs, so frankly, they don't have to pay as much. You could make a lot more by going into industry and working for a tech company or something like that. So in a lot of ways, you are doing it kind of for the love of the competition, for the love of the sport.
What about in terms of like a long-term view? The fact that, if this isn't something that you're going to do for the rest of your career, is it something that looks good on a resume for when you might apply to another job like that?
I like to think so. Yeah. I like to think like that's a hell of an icebreaker in an interview. Yeah, and that's the general impression I get. A lot of people who go into sports leave shortly after because they realize it's not for them, and it's like a laundry list of Fortune 500 companies that they tend to move out to.
In case it wasn't clear, Adam's job, that's his full-time job, right? Whereas my job is a part-time job, right? My full-time job is here. I'm working at Montgomery College. So I have 2 jobs. One is, a part-time job, but this is what you're doing. This is
Yeah.
your gig right now, right?
Correct. Until something changes, which is another con, right? There's an inherent transience. Is that the word?
Instability, maybe?
Yes, an inherent instability, right? You often hear about head coaches being fired or general managers being fired. What you might not hear about, but usually happens, is if a coach gets fired, his coaching staff goes with him, right? When the new coach comes in, he brings or she brings their own coaching staff in. When a general manager gets fired and a new one gets hired, they tend to bring their own front office in with them. So yeah, you don't really know when things are going to end.
Thank you. All right, so the next question we're going to move on is to maybe some predictions and analytics that go in it. So how do you see how you use data evolving with statistics and data science field as it is evolving parallel?
Me first.
Sure.
Actually, could you pull up one of those slides for me?
Mhm.
So I can talk a little bit about the history. So with basketball data beforehand, we really just had box scores, which is a couple rows of data for a game. Then we started getting play-by-play data. So that's like a row of data for every possession. Let's say each team gets 100 possessions a game, so about 200 rows of data per game. Then we started getting player tracking data. So for every second, I think at a clip of like 25 frames per second, we have the XY coordinates of every player and the ball on the court.
Are the players RFID tagged or something?
No, it's actually computer vision.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was a camera set up in every arena in the league. I think it was a company called Second Spectrum that did that. So the league has had that for a while. And player tracking data is actually pretty prevalent in most sports now. So I know MLB, you guys use Hawkeye, and the NBA now uses Hawkeye as well. We can talk about that in a minute. Soccer has player tracking data. The NFL has tags in the shoulder pads, which is cool because that way you get orientation too, right? Just based on you have 2 points of you have 2 coordinates basically per player. And now this most recent season, the NBA switched from data providers from Second Spectrum to Hawkeye. Hawkeye is the company that, like, if you watch tennis, they're the ones who do the was the ball out or not. They definitely do things in baseball. And with Hawkeye data, we get pose estimation. So now at 25 frames per second for every player on the court, we get 29 points, 27 or 29 points on their body, like their joints. So you can start to tell if a player has their arm outstretched, if they're closing out on defense. So just the amount of data has just like exponentially grown. It's a ridiculous amount of data. And it's kind of an arms race at this point to see like who is the first teams to harness this posed data in a meaningful way are going to have a competitive advantage. Yeah,
Is this the one you want?
yes, this is a visual that I took from Reddit, but it's probably like the most salient example of how analytics has really impacted the game of basketball. So in the top left corner, you see a shot chart from 1997, 1998. So think like Michael Jordan's heyday, right? Where Michael Jordan was known for like his turnaround mid-range jumper. And by mid-range, I mean a shot that's not very close to the rim, but not a three-pointer either. And over time, people realize that that's not really an efficient shot. You want to take efficient shots, right? So shots near the rim are very efficient because if you get close to the rim, you're not shooting very far. You have a high chance of making that shot and you have a high chance of being fouled, which leads to free throws, and people shoot free throws very well. So it's like your points per chance is much higher if you shoot near the rim. Similarly, shooting from behind the 3-point line. So taking a step back in basketball, if you shoot within the 3-point line, those shots are worth 2 points. If you shoot from outside of the 3-point line, that shot is worth 3 points. So if you move outside the 3-point line, yeah, you're shooting from a farther spot and it's a harder shot to make, but 3 points is 50% more points than you would get from a 2-pointer, right? So the math works out that 3-pointers are worth shooting. And where it really works out to say is that long twos are terrible shots, right? Like, why would you take a shot from that far out where you have a low percentage of making that, or you have low probability of making that shot, and you're not getting any sort of benefit for it in terms of points? So if you look in the bottom right, which is the shot chart from 2019, 2020, you've seen that most of the mid-range has been eliminated. Teams have really just started pushing the idea of take shots at the rim or take shots from behind the 3-point line. So analytics has clearly been adopted by the league in some way, and it is influencing the way basketball is played.
Let me pull up the.
Yeah. Should be on the same tab. Just
Oh, go ahead.
oh, darn. Try that.
Okay, so this is a system that Major League Baseball has that allows people in my position to be able to see a lot of data. What I have pulled up here is actually the last game of the World Series. And so this system I have active at my seat on my, I bring my iPad and I'll load it on there. And so what I have access to is a lot of camera angles and a lot of data. So here, let's click on a play. And what I can pull up is an instant replay of something that happens in the game. And so I get to see this, right away. You can see that the outfielder, oops, you missed the ball. All right, so that's going to get ruled an error by me or whoever's there. That wasn't me. And then I have a lot of different camera angles. This is the one that I employ a lot. This is what's known as the high home view, where I can see the whole field all at once, which is useful for knowing where the base runners were when some particular thing happened. Okay, so I have access to a lot of different camera angles. I can get others if I need to, but I also have some access to some statistics such as pitch data. Okay, so I have access to the pitch speed, how fast did the pitch get thrown, how long it took to get to the plate, spin rate on the ball, how fast the ball is spinning, extension. I think that's, where the pitcher released the ball relative to the pitching rubber. Hit data, how hard was the ball hit? 103.91 miles an hour. That seems like awfully precise resolution. 103 is a very hard hit ball. 110 is really hit hard, and 120, there's really only one guy in Major League Baseball that hits them at 120, and that's Giancarlo Stanton of the Yankees. angle, the angle of the ball off the bat, the distance that it was hit. Well, you say that wasn't hit 48 feet. Well, it was hit 48 feet and that the ball hit the ground first, 48 feet from home plate. And height, how high did it get? Well, only 3 feet. But if I pull up a home run, okay, here's a home run. Let's look at the video. Okay. Oh, the pitcher didn't seem so happy about that. Okay, so now the statistics on this are quite a bit different. Distance, 406 feet. Height, 76 feet. That's how high the ball got. How hard did he hit it? Not as hard as the other one, 99 miles an hour. We have, pitch data. I have also, this is kind of fun. This is a little simulator. Adam was talking about like tracking information. So there's a tracking system that follows the location of each player and the ball on the field. And you can see this little animation. So this is the data that's being generated, right? This is all, like you say, this is computer vision. And there's a guy that sits in the press box right near me who is monitoring the system and making sure that that all the players are appropriately tagged, that the computer vision is correctly seeing which player is which, and he's ensuring that the tags on those players are correct. Right. Pretty close to real time, yeah. Within seconds.
Isn't this cool? I know nothing about sports and I'm learning. Okay, wonderful. All right, I think I'm gonna skip to, let's see. I think this is actually my personal question that I'd like to change the order because I think this one's kind of important. When you're talking about these massive amounts of data collection, I really wanted to go to something completely off topic that maybe some people haven't thought about, but I want to know about what you think about the environmental impact of the amount of data collection that's happening. And you may or may not think about it. I think about it, and I'm curious what you know.
I can go first. I have not really thought about it. Yeah, I think we're so focused on just trying to make winning moves that I really haven't thought about the environmental impact of it.
I mean, these things have occurred to me that in Major League Baseball, there are 2,430 regular season games that get played every year, and that's a lot. And in each game, there are probably gigabytes or terabytes worth of data that is generated. So over the course of the season, the total amount of data that's generated, it has to be in the petabyte range, which you do not have a petabyte hard drive on your computer. Not yet.
By the way.
So where is all this data? Oh, it's in the cloud. Well, what's the cloud? The cloud is just somebody else's computer somewhere, right? So there are hard drives out there that are holding all of this data, and it is a lot. And this is a non-trivial impact. And environmental impact. And if you read about things like how much is cloud computing and just anything associated with computing, how much is it contributing to global energy use, it is a non-trivial amount. It can be measured as a whole number of percentage of the energy that is being consumed worldwide by all things, including automobiles, planes. So modern computing is a real thing in terms of carbon footprint. I don't know where this data is housed.
Yeah, that's what I was curious if you knew that.
No idea.
I do not.
Somewhere deep underground.
Where's your Gmail housed? Do you know?
That's a good
I don't
question.
know.
Well, I actually, because of the time, and I know we have so many people in both Zoom, oh, there's somebody else who just joined, and in person who have questions for our speakers. So first of all, I want to just thank them very much for this first part of the talk. So thank you very much, both of you. It's fantastic. So what we'll do is we will open it up to questions. I know there was one in the chat, so I think I'll start with just this first one here. This question is, which team? I'm not sure because this came in earlier and I didn't pay attention to where it came from. I apologize, Nima, but which team is the best at? Okay, then maybe you guys know. See, this is why I show my ignorance right here. 3S. And which one shoots the most mid-range shots if you know? So this, okay, wait. This goes to Adam, right? Yes.
It does. I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean, Steph Curry is the best shooter ever, and Klay Thompson's number 2. So I'd assume Golden State is very, very good at shooting threes. Uh,
I'm originally from California, so go Warriors. Sorry,
Mid-range.
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Uh, sorry, what was the second part of the question about the mid-range?
Yeah, sorry, I'll bring it back up again. Which one shoots the most mid-range shots, if you know?
I think it's Phoenix. Phoenix has both Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who both shoot mid-range shots at a very high clip. Kevin Durant is like a cheat code. He just makes everything. It's like when it comes to, yeah, Kevin Durant is just kind of in his own world. But yeah, I think that's the team that probably takes the most mid-range shots.
I'll keep the chat up because Nima has one more question, and then we'll get to other people. So, Nima, you get this. Do the Wizards want to win now or tank? Many Wizards fans have been wanting us to tank for a while. I'm not quite sure I'm going to go further with that because I'm not quite sure I understand it. But Nima, I'm so sorry. Wanted to see if this is what people on the inside think as well.
Don't worry, Adam knows what that means.
Nima, I do understand your question, and no comment.
Good answer. Thanks, Nima. Okay, so let me move this out of the way. Sorry. Too many controls. All right, so do we have any questions in the audience? What will happen is if you have a question, you'll say it and then I will repeat it so that people in Zoom can hear it as well. Go right ahead.
So based on the plot that you showed, we're just saying about certain players are excellent great shooters, which sounds like it's dying breed. So is that changing the makeup of the team? It looks like all you need is this player and 3 more shooters. So is that really changing the makeup of the team?
So the question is, sorry, I'm just going to repeat it, is if because of the lack of need for mid-range shooters, is it changing the makeup of the team? Is that right? Good.
Yeah, that in general. So I'm going to caveat. I should have said this initially, but I can't give too detailed answers about these things. I do like my job, and I'd rather not get fired. In general, what I would say is it appears that the league has understood that players who perform well at the rim and players who shoot threes well are valuable. That is a finite resource. There aren't that many players that can do those things very well and have other skills as well, right? Like just playing defense, right? You have this concept of the 3-and-D wing, which is a player that's like kind of tall, but can hit open threes and can play really good defense on the other team scores. And like every team wants 3-and-D players. It's all you ever hear about. There aren't that many very good 3-and-D players out there. So yeah, I think you could probably argue that the league in general values certain traits in players, but because those players are valued by all the same teams, it's a bidding war. It's hard to find them.
Okay, so thank you. This is from Rick Penn. Oh, my name is back. Wait, sorry. Hang on, Rick. So for Adam, you talked about the competitions you participated in and the simulations you made, but what do you think that was that really got your foot in the door for such a hard team to get with? And I know when our conference call that we had last week, we were talking about how you're basically like a unicorn. So yeah.
I wouldn't call myself that.
I think of you as unicorn.
Thank you. I got very lucky. I don't want to underplay how much luck got helped me out. There happened to be an opening with the Wizards that's right down the street from where I live. I happened to get along really well with the people who interviewed me. I happened to have started doing sports analytics stuff before I applied. So I had things to talk about and things to show. And yeah, I had interviewed with other teams before. I think I told you, Dr. Lee, I'd interviewed with the Yankees and things kind of switched up. So I ended up not being able to take that job.
Boy, I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. So, I walked away from that thinking that's it. I probably don't get another opportunity like this. So I just got very, very lucky is a good way to put it. But
You
Is
have
it-
to produce some of your own luck, though.
Yeah.
That's your tagline.
Luck is
Luck
the
is the residue of design.
Yeah. I guess I stayed ready. So it, yeah, I like doing personal projects, and I think I'm speaking from a place of privilege and just saying that I had the time to do personal projects. But things like that are super helpful because it forces you to think about all these considerations that you don't think about initially when you're actually like digging through the data and trying to create something. You often find that you're like, oh, what do I do in this situation? What kind of like what's a fair assumption to make here?
Okay, so Adam, let's say I'm a second year student in college and I'm interested in trying to be the next Adam. What kind of advice would you give me? Just general advice.
Okay, if you're taking a stat class, right? There's pretty much always there's always that project at the end that, sorry, Professor Saidi, we all kind of dread, but it's okay, here's find a data set, right? That's the first part. Find a data set that you're interested in and then like do something with it, right? Like actually find a data set that you're interested in. There's a lot of sports data out there. If you're interested in sports, find that data. And it's not super hard to find anymore. So yeah, go get that data and just ask a question. Like, what are you interested in? It's totally fine to see something that someone else has produced and reproduce it. In fact, it's like a really important part of research, right? Like if someone else reproduces something, then that lets you know that that thing actually was legitimate. It's been checked. So yeah, find data that you were interested in, ask yourself a question and try to get the answer.
I want to add to that, which is there's a lot of people who are interested in working in the sports industry and there's not enough jobs, which is this is the sports discount that you're talking about.
Mhm.
So if you're training yourself to try to work in the sports industry, you should study in a way that gives you a broad foundation in things that are not just related to sports. So when you study something like applied statistics, you want to do it in a way where you can say, can I apply these skills and tools that I've learned to sports or to something else?
100%. When I left MC, I took an internship out in Lincoln, Nebraska, working for like an agro tech company. I am from here. I know nothing about cows, but I was out there, and my boss is the same way. And he was always like, "Hey, like data is data wherever we go. We're gonna do cool stuff with this data, and when you leave this industry and you go into something else, you'll be able to take the same cool techniques and apply it there." So yeah, just data is data. Learn about how to deal with data.
Thank you. So from Ram, we have what programming languages do you use, Adam, at work, or tool? We'll just maybe say tools and technology.
Yeah,
And
our
maybe we can do that for Jason as well.
our stack is, so I write a lot of SQL. We're on the Google platform, which means we use something called BigQuery. There's like there are tons of different flavors of SQL, MySQL, Postgres, like all this stuff. They're all really just the same thing with like a few minor tweaks in between. A ton of SQL. I primarily do stuff in Python now. I don't get to do a ton in R. The occasional like Shiny app or something, but mostly Python and SQL at this point, and JavaScript.
I don't, but I will just offer advice to people in general that all of these things you talked about are important. You should learn a programming language. You should learn a high level language and a low level language. You should learn how to use Excel.
I'll walk
Yes.
away from that one.
You should learn how to use R. So a high level language like Python, a low level language like C++. You should learn about databases. I think that's all very useful stuff.
Thank you. All right. Oh, you got some more? Oh,
Question over there.
question. Sorry, go right ahead.
Who can like harness it?
Okay, I'm going to do my best. That was a great question. correct me if I get any of this wrong. So what you're saying is because there's such a massive amount of data coming in at such lightning speeds, at what point do you kind of say this is enough data to start working on your analysis? And then the second question is, do you have time to look at opponents' data as well? And you can also say no comment if you're not allowed to say anything.
I will say that sample size is a big thing, and getting an understanding of when statistics start to stabilize and you can start to trust them is a large part of the analysis process. And analyzing opposing teams, like, I think it's safe to say that every team is doing that. And I think analytics is a bit of like a buzzword. All it really is it's statistics, right? And all statistics is counting. It's like, and we have more and more like sophisticated ways of counting, but the way I look at it is it's really just counting, and coaches have always counted, right? Like coaches are always looking at who hit how many shots, who had how many steals. So scouting out your opponents before you play them is a huge part of the job.
Go right ahead.
Mhm.
Abnormal like shot trying to avoid wingspan. And in your data set, do you find that very do you see the differences of shots that they're taking when he's in the court, on the court?
No
Okay.
comment.
Well,
I
I
knew
can
he was
repeat
gonna
the
say that.
question before it gets a no
Sorry.
comment. No, that's
Sorry.
okay. So the player's name is Yamo, is that right?
No, when I come on.
Victor Wembanyama.
Victor Wembanyama. Okay. So apparently somebody very tall with very long arms. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
See, I'm learning. So anyway, the question was, do the sports analytics folks notice differences in the way the players are moving around that type of player? And the answer is
No comment.
okay. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, depending on how quick they are. So from Professor Iapalucci, I'm surprised that there is not a standard for player IDs in sports databases. Crazy that you have to do the matchup yourself. Oh no, you guys are wonderful with all your questions. Hang on. I would think that the leagues would want to set the standard. Is this something that Major League Baseball would or could do?
I can't answer it from the point of view of what the teams are doing because I'm not involved with the kind of things that Adam is doing. So I don't know. I do know that in the system that I demonstrated earlier, each player does have a unique identifying number. That's all I know. There's another question about like identifying the pitch. I believe that's automated. And I'm not surprised it's automated because when I'm watching a game, I can tell the difference between a fastball and a slider, even if I'm sitting in the fourth deck of the stadium. So I'm not surprised that a computer program can identify these things.
And there's so much data to train.
Yeah, there's so
on
much
that
data
too.
to train on that kind of stuff too.
Thank you. We have another question. Go right ahead. Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so from maybe you can both answer from your own perspectives. The question is data science more about math or about predicting, recognizing patterns?
To me, they're kind of entangled. Like you are using math to to me, they're both like they're two sides of the same coin. You're using math to recognize patterns. You can do a lot of data science is like a nebulous term too, right? Like no one really knows what a data scientist is or what it does. Or there's so many different parts of data science that in my mind, you could be a data scientist and like fully focus on the back end of stuff. You could be a data scientist and fully focus on hardcore analysis. They both count. The math part to me is important because it's once you know the code, it's really not that hard to just code up a model and produce some sort of predictions and even like get good predictions. But if you don't really understand the math going on behind it, at least at somewhat of a deep level, then what happens when the data changes, or what happens when your model goes bad, right? Like, can you debug? Like, do you understand why that model is working, or why that model is not working anymore? Or even if you take a step backwards, just finding the right model, right? Like, if it's not linear data, you should not be using a linear model. So just understanding things like that. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I think they're kind of one and the same.
Anything to add to that, Jason?
That was a great answer.
That
Yep.
was.
I have no comment.
Well, and that's actually incredibly perfect timing. And I'm so sorry if you had more questions, but it is 4 o'clock. So we are going to end this. So one last time to everyone who joined us in Zoom and everyone here in the audience, thank you for joining. And thank you one more time. A round of applause for our panelists. You guys were fantastic. And thank you again. I'm going to end this meeting, but it will be, it is recorded, so I will be posting it shortly. So you can always email me if you have questions and you want to see it again. Thank you. Oh, I left the meeting, but I didn't end the meeting. So